So last month, the genius that is Isaac Butterfield made a video about No Meat May. I suppose it's like Veganuary, but in May. Anyway, he did his usual stuff of taking the piss out of people trying to raise awareness of the destruction the animal industry is causing around the world. You know, the usual BS, but in the process of doing so, brought up the supposed figures that states that up to 75% of men refuse to give up eating red meat due to the fact that they perceive it as a manly thing to do. This study isn't exactly what you call foolproof. It was just a questionnaire given by the organisers of No Meat May to the general public, but it gives an insight into the general attitudes of the public towards meat consumption, especially at first glance. So, according to the write-up, out of 1,000 Aussies questioned, almost 1 in 2 associated a diet high in meat with manliness, including 47% of women. Moreover, 73% of men surveyed say they would rather die 10 years earlier than give up eating meat. I mean, from my point of view, willingly going against the crowd and accepting that idiots will attempt to belittle you for the rest of your life, all in defense of countless billions of nameless victims, seems like the more masculine thing to do, but I digress. He goes on to say that men are less likely to recycle as well, due to the fact they worry they might appear to come across to others as gay, as if the only man in the world recycling is Elton John. All of this brought up a question in my mind, which I'm sure many of you have had yourselves. Why do a lot of men seem to consider being vegan as unmanly? Why do some people try and label all vegans or eco-conscious people as gay, regardless of the fact that such a statement is highly homophobic and just plain wrong? Also, why are women the majority of vegans in the world when the effects are equally weighted among the sexes? I think the first point to bring up is that it goes against the standard stereotypes of what a man is, and people don't want to break from tradition, regardless of how they feel towards it. Conformity seems to be related to a number of fundamental human aspects of civilization. But why do we feel the need to conform? Why do men especially seem to want to cling more rigidly to the stereotypical fundamentals of their gender? This was an interesting point to study because it took me to some unexpected places, namely the founding of what became our society in the form of agriculture. There seems to be some reason to believe that agricultural societies typically propound a form of social norm for its population. In this article in Psychology Today, the author states, "It is no accident that religious zealotry is most likely to be found in agricultural societies, where the individual is raised to accept the views and beliefs of the community without question. This is further explained to be important due to learning how to survive from your parents and other elders, not changing the ways, learning how to keep the society going, otherwise you might die." Okay, maybe they didn't say it exactly like this, but the point remains valid. You are to learn to conform, regardless of the absurdity this might entail, to ensure the society survives and you have good standing within it. In a way, I found it rather ironic. Most anti-vegan men talk of ancestral tradition and cavemen, pre-agricultural man going out and killing a wild boar and some bollocks such as that, which was actually a time when individualistic ideas were more possible due to the lack of necessity to conform to social norms. So therefore aren't vegans more like pre-agricultural man because we don't feel the need to conform? Still, this doesn't fully answer this question. It only gives some possible explanation as to why humans have developed a need to conform, not why men are more likely to not go vegan when you wouldn't be destroying your tribe, would you? Why do men need to conform to social norms and consider everything that isn't them to be feminine? If we look back to the 20th century, we have a great example of when men did go against their society. In the first few decades of the century, socialist and communist movements were very popular amongst working men, so much so that pressure from these groups got so strong in the US that the New Deal was created to appease them, a deal that was necessary for the United States government, some argue, to avoid revolution. So men do go against everything they have ever known for some things, to demand better for themselves and their families in this case. What followed this, though, was McCarthyism. McCarthyism was a movement that punished anyone who considered themselves a socialist or communist with virtual expulsion from society. People lost their jobs. The rhetoric was all-encompassing, leading to the succeeding generations becoming massively fearful and against these notions. So in this case, fear and propaganda force the public as a whole to go against something that their grandfathers were most likely involved in supporting. Ironic, considering another argument against veganism is this is how it's always been done. What they really mean is this is the way the state I live in works, and as a member of that state, I must defend it as I know of no other existence. This is more of a macro level overlook, but on a micro level, the state, our society, instills the dogma of what men are meant to be through many different channels throughout our lives, one of which is the idea of the man eating large amounts of meat to maintain masculinity. Perhaps given our social history, the idea of going against the grain brings out a fear of being ostracised, losing their position, endangering their own lives, and not being able to protect their family. This time not because of fear of death and the destruction of your tribe, but fear of society removing you from it. Regardless, it seems clear that a lot of the fundamental reasons to remain omnivorous are due to expectations. It is possible that due to the social expectations of men, alongside a rather large lack of understanding in the field of nutrition, many men, out of fear of not looking manly, may have unknowingly developed an eating disorder. In this study, results from 4 simultaneous multiple regressions showed that increased conformity to masculine norms predicted greater muscle dissatisfaction and muscularity-oriented disordered eating. Muscularity-oriented disordered eating, for those of you that don't know, is an eating pattern which has the main goal of increasing muscle as efficiently and quickly as possible. This could even lead to steroid use in certain cases. This study indicates that such anxiety amongst men has its source in purchasing of muscle and fitness magazines, which correlated positively with levels of body dissatisfaction for both gay and heterosexual men. Though for full transparency, I must state that the study itself admits to talking about its limitations and further study does need to happen. But on a more casual talking point, this isn't unbelievable. We have all seen those types of magazines. Most men do not look like that. But such images don't help people's body image issues. On top of this, veganism has many unfounded arguments against it that are easily refuted, but come under the umbrella of bro science, which are basically just the new form of old wives' tales. The phrase soy boy alone is enough to explain what I mean here. Regardless of how ridiculous we know these claims to be, how can someone with body image issues surrounding muscle mass consider adopting a lifestyle that is falsely claimed to make one weaker? So is this the case with all men? I'm sure we can all point to some examples which fit the bill, but I tend to avoid using such blanket statements, especially about disorders of any kind. But I think that it stands to reason that appearance and social acceptance seem to be of major importance to men within their own community. It's not just vegans, it's anyone that is different, or really anyone that goes against or questions the norms of their perceived perfect society. I would argue that this may be why men find it difficult to show their emotions. It could be perceived as weakness or disloyalty to the tribe because they cannot feel the world around them is perfect if it's affecting them badly. Getting back to veganism, to turn one's back on what is a fundamentally stereotypical depiction of what it means to be a man, that could lead to ostracization, something that, as we have discussed, has been a foundation of agricultural societies and goes along with the dogma, would therefore lead to the acquisition of lands for being seen as worthy to inherit it because you will not endanger the community by changing a proven practice. Even if you can see the logical faults in the process, would be difficult. But all these arguments so far indicate a hidden belief that they are wrong, and seeing a group of people who are thinking that it is wrong as well would no doubt be something that would free you, right? Well, maybe it's not that simple. According to Noam Chomsky, even if we find ourselves in a situation that creates a cognitive dissonance, very few people can hold that distance and will therefore begin to believe the rhetoric that is there in an attempt to justify an action. Ergo, we believe it because we cannot not believe it without hardship. If you say a lie enough, you believe the lie. As vegans, we are therefore attacking a fundamental staple of manhood, not that it deserves to be one in any way, and it goes against our protective instincts in some ways as well. But by doing so, we are automatically attempting to stop them justifying the rhetoric which is covering a major cognitive dissonance. something that some men find extremely difficult to comprehend due to a want to be accepted, which can lead in some cases out of fear to push back. I suppose the next question is, that's all very well and good, but why does this mean that they conflate veganism and unmasculinity? I would agree that it's for the same reason they consider homosexuality, transgenderism, and in some cases race to be in the same category. It's simple. It's not about not being masculine at all. It's about other. The idea of the other, someone that does not mirror you and your ideals, must be proven to be inferior to you and therefore devalue them, thereby pronouncing you are the superior, justifying everything you do to maintain the status as justifiable and necessary to be one of the top members of your society. I don't want to get into race and veganism in this video, but in terms of othering, I feel that a great example of this devaluing can be seen in some of the caricatures of African Americans in the Jim Crow era. The way they were portrayed as lazy, unfeeling, less intelligent, and ugly drip-fed the white community this idea that they were superior because all of these things did not relate to them, apparently. The same concepts can be seen in the anti-vegan community. The idea that vegans are weak, pasty, not sexually successful, over-emotional, easily offended and triggered pervades the dogmatic propaganda without basis, but it just reconfirms the lies that cover the cognitive dissonance and allows the masses to accept it as truth. So, in conclusion, it's a far-reaching topic, something that touches many facets of our culture and really brings to light just how dogmatic certain aspects of our society are. The most important thing to remember, though, is that whenever someone questions your masculinity as a vegan, it's not really about them thinking you're not a man. It's about them trying to prove to themselves that they are. Believe in yourself, look after the planet and others, and you will never need to question it. Thank you for watching. Do you agree with what I've said? Let me know down below, and please subscribe for more content. For an insider's expose of the chicken industry here in the UK, watch this next video here. Thanks again. See you next time.